So how is the GTA 6 map mapped? And what do we really do in the GTA 6 community map in Discord? To me it seems like some people think that we GTA 6 mappers are some kind of gods and super intellectual people who know everything about everything. However, for example, I'm a living contradiction to this. My name is Saukko and I'm a member of the GTA 6 mapping community, and I have contributed heavily in mapping parts of the GTA 6 map. I'm one of the people with most activity in the mapping server, and I'm also a moderator there, so I know very well what's happening within the community. But what do we really do in the server? And how we turn this into this? And how do we do it accurately so that we don't end up with something like this? September 19th, 2022 was the day when the major GTA 6 leak happened, which included 90 video clips from the game, and these clips serve as a basis for the community map, as they have coordinates in them. And this is what the map looked like few days after the leaks. And this map already has all the leaked clips in the correct locations, because most of them had coordinates in the bottom left corner of the screen, in the debug bar, which was in most of the leaks. And yes, we know the scale of the coordinates. It's 1 unit per 1 meter, and this has been proved several times over, so I don't want to see anyone questioning that anymore. So this gives us a solid base for the map, as we have some anchor points on which we can then base everything else on, unlike when GTA 5 was mapped. At times the map was very stretched out, as we didn't have anything to anchor the map to. So this map is based on coordinates, the mini-maps which we had in the leaks, and some basic visual approximations, for example with the stadium or the prison near Port Kelhon. However, the size of these things are still wrong, and the location is a bit more off. And for that we need a bit more improved tools and methods to determine where things are a bit further away from the leaked locations, which had accurate coordinates for them. This is where triangulations come in, and more specifically RLX, or Rolux, or XLR, any which way you know him by. And he is a fucking wizard, or at least that's what it feels like to me, as he has created a Python script which can triangulate a location of an object from 2 or more images of the location. And he has now improved his methods in a way that he can determine where a picture is taken based on the buildings we see on the picture, if we know the accurate size and location of the buildings. However, all of this just started on us knowing accurate locations of the leaks, and from there pointing lines from the leaks to a building seen in 2 leaks. So originally all of this was just 2-dimensional, so not completely accurate but relatively accurate. And this is what the triangulations look like when all were laid onto the map. We can see locations of the scenes and then intersection points for buildings. So each of these lines is a ray from a scene towards a building. And this is how it looked like from the scenes themselves. You can see there's a node for each building and question marks for those that we have not identified. And now RLX has improved this into 3 dimensions, so even height is taken into consideration in the triangulations. I'm not completely sure how this works anymore, but it's basically 100% accurate if we get it correct. And RLX has made his tool open source, so you too can try it if you know Python. And with the tool, RLX can get the accurate location, altitude and direction of the scenes and screenshots, which lets him do things like this. And voila, we have an accurate map for the southern part of the map. Isn't that fucking amazing? And RLX is one of the people who fills our first role in the mapping server, which I haven't come up with a good name for yet. Something like a locator. So a person who determines where things are accurately on the map. So a person who fills this role, for example, would be RLX or Rick, who uses a 3D model on Blender to get accurate locations on the map. He has imported buildings from Google Maps into the Blender to see accurately the sizes of things. And with that he can get accurate locations of the buildings and place them onto the map. He has his own community map based on his own triangulations, with of course some things triangulated from RLX in there. And Rick's map is only for Vice City at the moment. So that's one of the things that people do on the mapping server. Then another task, which is probably the most popular and common, which most people do, is discovering the locations in real life. So we identify buildings and locations so that of course we know what things are based on, and so that we can more accurately triangulate things as we know the accurate size and shape from real life. And if we identify things in real life, we can also extrapolate some things in-game from that information. Of course, we can tell what the building's shaped like, so we can map out the unseen parts of the building, and we can predict what buildings will be near that building too. And we can see how insanely Rockstar creates the maps, as we might have some buildings from across the state in some areas, like this train station, which in-game is located in Port Gellhorn and in real life close to Jacksonville. This task takes a lot of intuition, and you need to have vision for what and where to look for. Vision, you get what I mean. So you need to understand the way Rockstar makes their maps. Of course, you could go through every single street in Miami to find a single building, but there are easier ways. And prominent mappers who fill this role are, for example, me, as I have a few dozen identified locations under my belt, and I don't come for easy pickings. Then another identifier, Jaifa, who has made several major discoveries, like finding this gas station all the way in northern Florida. And yes, this was discovered by just going through every highway in the US. But basically, this is just looking at Google Maps and the game and comparing and trying to find the exact match for things. And of course, we need to look back into like 2014 and 2015, because that's when the buildings were scouted for the game, and some might have been demolished since. And of course, this is more kind of supporting work for the locators who put these stuffs in the correct locations. And the third role, which is the mappers, who actually like compose the map itself from the work of the locators and the identifiers. And two of the most prominent mappers are Dubsor and Yanis. Dubsor was the first one to compose a map for GTA 6 and did that for a while. He also worked on GTA 5's map. However, Dubsor is taking a bit longer of a break now from mapping, as he has a life, and Yanis has filled his boots. So Yanis' map is foundated on the Dubsor's map and then expanded upon. And of course, Yanis' map is vectorized, so it's much easier to edit, and the map is much more lightweight, as it's not a 20,000 by 20,000 pixel PNG. Also, the mappers have the hard task of determining what gets added to the map. Of course, we as a community decide what goes on the map, but they have the final say on things, and they have to set their own level of how much speculative things they want to add to the map, as this is basically the area that we are completely sure of and know that exists. So the mappers need to fill in the unknown areas somehow, and then things like the Panhandle end up appearing, as it's added there to basically make the map look like the shape of Florida. And of course, members are not limited to a single role. They can do several different things. However, often people gravitate to one of these. So, how is a change added to the map? The most common way for things to start is that identifiers identify a new building from the trailers or screenshots or the leaks. So first a building is identified, then we try to figure out, well, is this actually it? Get at least a few opinions in, then try to figure out if we could see it anywhere else. If we can, then that's great and we can triangulate it. Or if we can't, we can just try to estimate its location, based on several different factors. And then, of course, we discuss it more if, for example, the building is not 100% match, so Rockstar has possibly changed something. But once we have come to an agreement, we make a map change ticket on the Discord, and Yanis or Dubso adds the change to the map. So even small discoveries are group efforts. And of course, some map changes are larger compositions, or just maybe smaller individual buildings. So Yanis and Dubso are not the only people making the map. There are other people behind the curtains too. Well, mostly Erlex, as he does most of the triangulations and stuff. And archival of our discoveries, as he's hosting a GTA database, which has all the locations on the real world map and the GTA 6 map. But other people too. And yes, there's like hundreds of people credited on the map. However, only a small portion of those actually work on the map regularly. Like I would say 1 or 2 dozen people who work on the map weekly, and just a handful of people who work on it constantly. So we are a smaller group than many people think. This was a relatively short summary of what we do in the mapping server, and of course there is much more to it. I might make some more in-depth videos about some of the subjects, but I hope you learned something new about us and can share that information further to others. So please like the video, comment if you have something to say, and of course subscribe, so that more people will see the video. And of course my memberships are open if you wanna hand me a tip. Thank you.